So here's the Warzone Season 5 patch notes for August 6th, which obviously we'll get tomorrow. In terms of multiplayer and zombies, they're going to get their new content, but we're focusing mainly on Warzone. There is a global update about the Ricochet anti-cheat. One thing is they did do a dedicated blog for that one, which we won't cover. We'll cover some of the main highlights because there are some pretty big important changes that they're doing with Ricochet that maybe it'll actually be useful, but we'll see kind of how that goes. Brand new battle pass as always, but then the map is going to have some adjustments with Stadium. I believe this is going to be a 1-week event where you're going to be able to cause the stadium to destruct. And we had a dev call earlier where I was on the call, and with them, they kind of explained that they're expecting that people will open up the stadium like 1 in 4 matches or something like that. And then skilled players can probably do it at a higher rate and do that because there's multiple steps. So new multi-step contract is available during the first week of the season. So that'll just be then. And then after that, it'll just remain open without that contract. Uncover hidden operations and complete explosive satellite hijack contract before time runs out. Once unlocked, players will find that this POI is now more meaningful than ever with the introduction of the militarized variant, updates included. And then we got new vertical structures offer increased control over sightlines and engagement opportunities. Most additions are made of solid materials to reduce wall banging from the outskirts. And then height variation between structures introduces more diverse combat encounters. And then multiple structures provide plenty of loot for players to scavenge. The outer ring of the stadium remains largely unchanged. That's the actual outside. And then starting on week 2, though through the end of the season 5, the stadium will remain permanently unlocked and be designated as a high value loot zone. And this is going to be a little bit different than what we had back before, where it opened up like 95% of stadium, and then it was basically like a soccer field in the middle. This is going to be a little bit different. There's multiple buildings down here. There's a rocket in the middle, and then the little bit of the mid-level on the outer ring will also be available. So you'll be able to zip up, get the key card, open those doors, and there should be a blueprint or weapon blueprint in there. So you might want to unlock that whenever you can. But there's also multiple Easter egg rewards for completing this specific activity, which might make it a little bit competitive for the first couple days for people trying to get it as fast as possible. But we'll see kind of how that goes. So new mode, there's Stadium Resurgence. What you expect from Resurgence, but it's Stadium. And then that'll start week 2, not right away. So there's kind of the playlist. We got solos, duos, quads, so no trios. Sadly, trios has been left behind for ranked play, apparently. And then Battle Royale, casual still rocks itself with Resurgence as well. And then we got the ranked play. They adjusted some SR. They felt like a lot of people were still losing SR when they were getting top like 3 or 4. So they adjusted the SR so to fill that kind of gap. And then Resurgence elimination challenges. You get stickers, camos, blueprints, whatever. We're not really big ranked play people, but if you are, there's tons of rewards. They refresh that regularly. They do have a camo, and they do have a blueprint for the Grau or the SWAT 556. So loot economy. So this applies for the rest of the game. So the new LMG is going to be on the ground and supply boxes, and then lootable perks, Shrouded, Irradiated, Loot Master, Reflexes, Bomb Squad, and Gung Ho. And then I'm sure they'll mention it later, but in the call they talked about how they updated the UI, because knowing which ones you had picked up was a little bit of a hurdle for people just because they didn't even know it existed. If you opened up your inventory, which we don't really go into as much in Warzone now that the backpacks have been removed, these little icons were below your little backpack area or where you're holding your items. And then it would have the different icons on the various color, blue, red, whatever. And it would just be the individual icons of these perks. That is being scrapped, and now we'll be able to see it on the base HUD. And they've also implemented changes so that when you're a spectator or along those lines with the kill cam, you will also have visibility around these things. So they went in and adjusted those quality of life things so that you can know what you have. And then if you're spectating someone, you're like, how the heck did they kill me? Oh, they knew I had this, or they had this. And you get just more tools for more information. Adjustments to buy stations. So buy station updates, buy station spawn locations have been re-randomized across the map. So you can kind of see where the heck they are. Dynamic combat scenarios and rotation opportunities. Stadium buy station will now appear once the roof has been breached. Starting in week 2 of season 5, it will be available at the start of the match. New buy station locations are as follows. So you could already see, oh, they brought that one back for prison. Okay, you have a couple there. The stadium one on the internal, which obviously needs to be blown up. Superstore, it has the one out in the parking lot. And then they also have the one over here. Ooh, okay. They look like they're spread out pretty well. It'd be cool if there was maybe one on here. I don't know. I guess this is more interior, but cool there. And then a new contract, we get the satellite hack. This is related to the first week because it's a limited time contract. So it's not going to be like an overhaul to the way the contracts work. Available for only week 1, the satellite hijack contract challenges squads to breach the stadium, working with or against one another. How it works: multiple squads must complete the contract in the same match to initiate the stadium. If you're one squad and you're efficient, you can do this multiple times and you'll satisfy that need. A 4-step process. You got to investigate a campsite, locate a decrypting tool, eliminate a player who has already scavenged it, hijacked a relay module to begin the hacking process. Once hacking is complete, rush into the breach stadium. So basically you can kill any player and it automatically drop that. And then rewards: secure a permanent weapon blueprint by locating the weapon case hidden inside the stadium. Discover limited time secondary objectives hidden within the area. And available both core and casual battle royale modes. Ooh, that could actually be interesting. Casual will have some utility there. And then adjustments to equipment: spring mines, increased damage reduction when prone. It should be 0. And then players now receive 85% damage reduction when performing those actions. It should be 100. You're already prone, you're limited, you set yourself up for a headshot. Equipment, we get napalm strike. Calling a targeted strike of explosive napalm to cut off enemies and the rain fire above. Functional similarities to airstrike. Okay, what happened to the idea of these are available only in care packages? What happened to the idea of putting these in LTMs to try these out first? Was this already in an LTM that I wasn't aware of? I don't know. Perks, adjustments. Perks during the match will appear on the HUD. That's kind of what I already discussed. And the specialist is now easier. In the Nakatomi Tower or Outlook or Outlook, whatever the little new POI is in downtown. The specialist, the pool balls will already be arranged there. Now you'll just need to make sure you get the key cards so that when you go in there, you'll open it. I guess the people are struggling with it, so they've made it even easier and faster. So anyone who was already proficient at it will be even better. And then it'll be a little bit easier. So weapons, general. So drop rate adjustments for Verdansk Battle Royale. Assault rifles now have slightly higher spawn rate compared to SMGs, okay? This adjustment is intended to improve the access to mid-range options over short-range alternatives. And then Rebirth Island adjusted each class to drop rate. So rifles is a little bit more, SMGs is more, LMGs is a little bit less, snipers less, shotguns less, marksmen still 5%, and then pistols are lower as well, slightly. So we get the new LMG, and then we get the new assault rifle ABR, which is a burst. But what they mentioned is it has a configuration for full auto, and the damage profile in full auto is completely different. So essentially, they're giving us 2 guns with this gun. Unfortunately, with that, it sometimes sacrifices an attachment where it may not be able to handle with the 5 attachment build. Maybe it'll require 8. The Growl has done a pretty good job with this, but it also has amazing iron sights. If it has a built-in optic, that could save an attachment, and we'll just kind of have to see how that goes since those are in the battle pass. And the boxing glove, which you think, I don't care about melee weapons. This one could be an interesting melee weapon because melee weapon you could swap to at any time and get the unlimited attack sprint. We get the skull splitter, which we'll see kind of how that goes. And the PPSH, we get the helical magazine. It's almost like the PP Bison, where you get that. And then fire to the beat of your own drum with the SMG attachment that puts other magazines to shame. Manage heat on the ammo amount count magazine that excels at spraying bullets into close and medium ranges. Can be acquired via in-season event. So we'll get this one a little bit later, and then the skull splitter will be in the battle pass. Default loadout. So we get Kilo is going to replace the FFAR. The Jackal replaces the Ladra. ABR replaces the SWAT. If you don't have it yet in the battle pass, you can equip the Commando default loadout and level the ABR while you work your way through the free version of the battle pass. Same thing with the strategist. You'll be able to get that. And then the Recon will have those changes, and then the Ladra replaces the LC-10. So as far as weapon adjustments, they kind of gave us a heads up. Now I get to actually see the numbers. And then I asked a few questions. Personally, I'm not a fan of the direction where they're going to take weapon balancing. I've talked about this for the past 5 seasons and multiple years. My vision of the way weapon balancing should, in theory, work, and how one change can fix another problem that you didn't even think about. And I've gone through great detail and length on these types of things. And this has been one of the biggest contributing factors of why I've stopped a lot, as frequent uploads. It's been like 8 days since I uploaded or whatever, since we got the blog or the roadmap. And the reason for that is I just don't find any interesting aspects to the weapon balance. It's been the same weapons we've covered. Of course, I could put out top 10 loadouts, close range, long range, sniper support. But at the end of the day, it's just like a copy and paste of the original. And that's not necessarily inspiring. So based on the call, I wasn't inspired that that's gonna change. And unfortunately, they'll probably keep going down that road. But that's just an aside. We'll talk a little bit more about that. So weapons, we get the AK, gets a range boost, bullet velocity, negligible, and then inflicted flinch on enemies is increased by 15%. And then we got the aims, gets a little bit of a range buff all the way across. That should be a little bit better, but I think it still gets outgunned by a few of the other guns, especially up close. And then where it should excel at long range, there's a few other options. AS Val, they kind of wanted this to be the dominant sniper support option. I guess not enough people were using it. And I don't know if they solved that. They increased the headshot multiplier. They improved the torso and leg multipliers. They added more bullet velocity, which I don't think it really struggles with because you get the integrated suppressor. I think recoil springs gets a buff here. So maybe that'll help because it's kind of one of those unorthodox guns where you don't get to put a barrel on for the bullet velocity, but it still ends up with quite a bit. You can go recoil springs for that sniper support option. AMAX, one of my favorites. It gets a slight buff on both sides there. And maybe the 8 attachment, you're going to be kind of encouraged to use that the stock that's going to help with flinch to offset these types of things. Since we don't really, those attachments weren't really valuable before. Model L, range buffs, cool. They're kind of getting in line with that. They've slowly kind of moved the needle towards kind of what I've suggested, but it's taken like 17 updates instead of like 2. To get to that fine point. I think they're scared to just shake it up versus shaking it up sometimes is a really good thing. It has both positive and negatives. Like you can shake it up in a really bad way and then course correct really quickly. But if you shake it up in a good way, the response could be overwhelmingly positive. It's just a matter of let's do these little inchworm movements and finally get there. So C9 gets a range buff. Jackal range buff. Aim down sight gets sped up by 5 milliseconds. I don't know who was bothered by that. Compact, a little bit of improvement, aim down sight. Headshot multiplier on KSV. This could be pretty interesting. Maybe 1 shot less to kill, or maybe you don't need 2 headshots. You only need 1. And that can impact the effective TTK. I guess we'll have to look at the numbers. The Ladra, we get a little bit of a range buff, headshot multiplier increase. This is one thing that they mentioned on the call. They're like, oh, we want like skill to be a factor. More with headshots, and that's usually the case in a lot of different instances where headshots doing more damage can in fact be a skill differential. But the way the game works is there's flinch in the game, and especially we saw that they have increased flinch on multiple rifles. So if you get in a gunfight, you hit chest, then you boop the person's shot to the head, and then now they're doing headshot damage. And then they get back on target. Well, now effectively you may have lost that gunfight. Just the way the different shot placement algorithm works, where now you're giving them a lower shot to kill, and then effectively you lose the gunfight, and the person wasn't necessarily more skillful. They got flinched into your head. So I'm not a fan of that unless they're gonna reduce flinch. But as we've seen with the rifles, that's not the case, at least on that end. And an SMG, if it kicks to the head, or something's hard hitting, well, now effectively you've made yourself a harder target to hit. And I think this also actively discourages drop shotting, which is one of the few movement tech that we have, even though that's kind of been nerfed into the ground. So a few different changes here I'm not necessarily a fan of. And then also you get sometimes, depending on the gun, you might get wildly ranging TTKs where the extra headshot might lower the TTK, effective TTK too low. And then now you feel like you don't have a chance to react. It's kind of like in that happy medium, which is usually between about 550 to 600 milliseconds for close range. And then obviously you have maybe a couple outliers on occasion if you land 3 chest shots and a headshot or something like that. But I guess we'll see. There's the buff. LC10, they explain that too many people are using this. I think one of the biggest things why people are using this is because the recoil is so low that became a problem. But if you look at all the changes, they didn't change recoil at all. I could hit the 50-meter target dummy in the firing range with the LC10, which shouldn't be possible with an SMG. So they adjusted the range. Cool. They adjusted the headshot multiplier. They made it weaker. Arms made it weaker. Lower torso weaker. And they slowed it down. But the one thing that I think it probably needed was a little bit more recoil. And then maybe people would miss shots. LC10 was too forgiving in that case. So they may have essentially nerfed it in the ground, depending on how these things lay out. And then maybe we'll be using the ladder again because it was already good. But now we got that. And then compact, KSV, these were all already good guns. It's just this one was slightly too easy to use. PPSH gets a buff, pretty significant for the headshot, up to almost a 1.3. And then faster, SOG gets a little bit of buff there, which I already liked. And then the Tanto has a slow firing rate. I don't think this will solve it, especially doing the camo grind recently. I don't think that's enough. Marine SP, they sped that one up. GPMG gets a headshot increase, better bullet velocity, and a buff. These are good. These seem like relatively balanced buffs. I don't think a lot of people will still use these because they're slow. The new LMG could be pretty interesting. AEK, headshot multiplier goes up, upper torso. This thing is significantly better after they updated it, but it still is a little too shaky. So this one could be a little bit more fun. You want to mess around a little bit, especially on small map. RAL conversion kit, it ends up getting a little bit of a nerf, which cool, it's fine. I guess we'll see how that goes. And then the sniper rifles. They're nerfing the HDR. They're slowing it down. They're making it worse. And I asked, well, why not just buff all the other snipers? They're like, well, we want everything to kind of have a place and I don't know. I just didn't vibe with their answer, personally, if I'm being honest. And I don't like the direction they're going with snipers because we're just going to end up repeating it like what we did before, where they end up, I don't know if there's data to suggest this, that they're not, but like realistically, you should have it where people can join the game and have like 5 different options for snipers, 5 different options for whatever. And it seems like common sense because we've already had the track record, but it's almost like they're repeating the past instead of learning from it. So, and I know I've mentioned this multiple times. It's not being a downer or anything like that. It's just conveying my initial thoughts and the thoughts we've had for months here, because it's not like this is going to change anything, in my opinion. Cool, you have a gun that doesn't one shot, it's too slow, doesn't have enough bullet velocity. Still going to use the HDR. Just less fun now. And then we have the Frost line. It gets a little bit of a buff there. Slowed ADS speed. They don't want that to be too strong. And then the Siren gets a little bit of a buff, which is great for your 8 attachment builds. I still think it doesn't kill nearly as fast as maybe the other pistol, but we'll see. Weapon leveling display improvements. Your current weapon level and its max level are now displayed together in areas where only the current level was previous. That's cool for people that are still trying to level. You don't have to actually go to an attachment to find out what level like is the max. Friendly field upgrade indicator, quality of life, deployable cover, trophy system now indicated in deploy friendly player. Aligning with the existing visuals, friendly lethal. Okay, cool. Challenges, set up a UAV towers to properly count towards challenges that require a player to be under the effect of the UAV. That is pretty solid for those camos. Updated the Fang Diamond and Dark Matter camo challenges to correctly track multi-kill progress. Expanded the requirements to unique camo challenges require kills on most wanted targets. Kills on bounty targets will also count. That's a W. This change gives players more flexibility, especially after they nerfed the most wanted kind of into the ground with the long delays. And then they got a decent amount of bug fixes, some gameplay, ranked play, UI, and that's that part. But let's go ahead and read the other part. Like I said, they did put out the blog. The main thing from it is that it's going to come with secure boot and trusted platform module, whatever the hell that is. I'm not really the PC tech guy, but this is going to be Call of Duty Black Ops 7 is kind of like when it's going to be officially starting. And it's also the time when a lot of people have to be kind of forced into Windows 11, which already has that on by default. And this secure boot will be tested in Warzone Season 5. So they're going to already try to experiment This is just an extra deterrent. People can still cheat with this thing, but the cheat developers just have to work their way around it. I think Battlefield has a similar thing, so we'll find out pretty quickly how effective that is at stopping at least that first step of the anti-cheat. They also mentioned in there, because there's a lot of people, there's also a thing where a lot of people got banned recently for AFKing tiers and stuff like that. And the main reason they went after that, it says boosting services often flood lobbies, low effort accounts to use illegitimately farm XP and complete challenges so that they can jump in. You're like, how is this person level 55 and not get caught yet? Well, a lot of times what they do is they boost the account AFK all the way to max level, get all of the things they need, and then they can sell the accounts that are level 55, and then it takes the system longer to detect them. Unfortunately, if you were permanently banned, it means that a majority of your time was made up of that. So they went specifically after those patterns of abuse. I'm sure some people could argue, well, that's not the case, but if you don't play the game and you AFK for 40 hours, well, that's probably, it sucks, but it is what it is. And then obviously we have the Battlefield beta. If you're looking for access, all you do gotta watch 30 minutes of any creator on the 7th or 8th, and then you get early access, and the rest of it's open on all the platforms. Those are the dates there. I'll probably be live streaming at some point. I got to do the zombies Easter egg. And realistically, there's not going to be a ton to cover other than the stadium stuff, which I'm not usually an event guy. So I don't see myself posting a ton of content around that. And we'll see kind of what the weapon balancing does. We got EWC. There's tons of other things going on around COD. And I think it's unfortunate that they don't do a good job of pulling the levers to keep content engaged, right? I think the event is a great example of a good like W. And it seems like it was put together really well, passionately. I think that it'll impact the way the map plays in that area. I think after the week, it'll create a dynamic landing spot. The high value loot zone, I think that's all a W. And then you got other levers like that they market the hell out of, which is Battle Pass and all these skins in the store. Cool. That doesn't really appeal to me. I know people that buy those regularly though. You load up to any match. Those are what people are buying. And then you have the weapon balancing tuning to make it more fun and add more diversity to the loadouts. Nearly every single patch we have had this year, nearly all, I'm not going to say all, but nearly all, essentially they pulled a lever to make it less fun. There's other things they can do too with dynamic gameplay. The thing that they did with the Most Wanted, cool, that kind of sucked. But there's other ways to like make a positive scenario where players are like encouraged to change behaviors without like removing something, right? Because they removed it for the first zone. They could have simply said, all right, all the other contracts are worth 30% more or double in some cases that are underutilized. But nope, we got the search and destroy contract, which I'm not a fan of. And I don't think I've heard anyone say they love the contract. But maybe there's some exceptions there. So I think there's plenty of missteps that they do. And I think it's great that Call of Duty has competition. And it seems like Battlefield will be pretty popular. Obviously, there's always people like, oh, well, you should cover that game. I'll probably have my own individual review. But multiplayer is not really something I plan to cover. Maybe the Battle Royale is amazing. Maybe we could talk about that. There's Arc Raiders. There's tons of other games on the horizon. But multiplayer Battlefield isn't necessarily for me. I'll play it, see how it goes. But we got the update and stuff like that too. So I just wanted to give you my thoughts because I'm sure people are interested. So we'll see how it goes. See you on the next one. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.